It's about 11 o'clock. I'm going to mute everyone so we can get started.
Good morning. Morning. One more time, morning. Yay. Welcome, everyone. Good morning to you who are gathered here in the sanctuary on Rugby Road, and to all of you who are joining us online via Zoom. As we come together for our worship service this morning, let's all enjoy this musical prelude offered by pianist James Smith. Thank you. If those of you who haven't had your morning coffee yet, that's all you needed. Greetings, everyone, on this lovely day. Welcome to our community worship here at the UU congregation of Charlottesville. My name is Greg Townsend, and I am serving today as your worship weaver. Some of us are in the sanctuaries of our homes, joining in this community online. Welcome. Some of us are in the sanctuary in Rugby Road. This place was built for this congregation over 70 years ago on a hilltop setting, on land that is the homeland of the Monacan people, and land that was once cared for by enslaved people from Africa. We honor all those who dwelt here before, and all those in our congregation over the decades whose lives led to this moment of our gathering as a community of memory and hope. We are blessed by their memory. I am so happy to be weaving worship this morning with Reverend Tim, who's leading his first service here at UU Charlottesville. Welcome, Reverend Tim. I feel like I'm Steve Jobs unveiling the new Mac laptop. I invite you now to take a moment to greet others who are with us in worship this morning. Those of you on Zoom can unmute and say hello to one another. And those of you in the building, you can rise and turn to greet those close to you.
Now it's time to
Hello.
everybody.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
How's everybody on Zoom?
Welcome,
Good to see you,
Reverend
Flame.
Tim.
Good.
Gretchen,
Hello.
hello.
Good to see all of you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, y'all.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning, all.
It'll be a big day for us.
It's a very big day.
Celebration. Hello.
Yay.
Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Hello.
There's Diana John. You see that? She's waving to us.
Yeah, she's waving.
Fail to detect your microphone.
You can stand up.
Microphones are done.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Karen.
It is so good to be with one another. We are especially happy to greet those of you who are here with us for the first time. Welcome to this community of compassion, justice, and love. A reminder for everyone in the sanctuary, this is so very important. Please keep your high-quality mask in place, covering both your nose and your mouth at all times while you're in the sanctuary and other parts of the church building. If you need a sip of water or a breath of fresh air, please step outside the building and then come back and join us. This act of kindness to your fellow congregants will keep everyone safe as possible as we continue to navigate life during the ongoing pandemic. We also have seating in the social hall where you can participate in worship by watching a live stream video on a large screen. The social hall is particularly welcoming to families with young children with a play space including blocks and toys. And supervised play is also available on the playground during worship for children of all ages. Please do what you need to do this morning to feel comfortable as we all do our best to care for one another and keep each other as healthy and safe as possible. Many thanks to all the folks helping us share worship both here and online. Our on-site greeters, ushers, and hospitality and logistics team. A special thanks to our AV tech team, Sean Scally, Celia DeBow, and Rachel Buckland, supporting the dual platform worship both online and in the Rugby Road Sanctuary. And I am happy to be joined in sharing this worship with Reverend Tim and pianist James Smith. Here to greet you from your Board of Trustees is Pam McIntire.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to church. I'm Pam McIntire. I'm the president of the board this year. We are so lucky to have Reverend Tim with us. As our developmental minister, the board is very excited to work with Rev Tim and the whole congregation on our developmental goals. We look forward to defining a broad shared vision of our purpose, to becoming a more welcoming congregation to all, to enhancing our stewardship ministry, and to strengthening our internal processes and communication. We will be having congregational conversations this fall about these goals, and you're also welcome to come to our monthly board meetings. I look forward to talking with all of you. I'm going to hang out outside after church if anybody has any questions or ideas. These are very exciting times at UUCville.
Thank you, Pam. Isn't she the best? I have several announcements this morning. A reminder that we will have a welcoming reception in the social hall after the service to celebrate Reverend Tim's first Sunday with us. This coming Thursday and Friday, August 11th and 12th, mark 5 years since the tragic events surrounding the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. As part of our community's ongoing journey of healing and building beloved community, the Charlottesville Clergy Collective is sponsoring 2 events on Friday: a walking vigil of remembrance at 4:30 and a Unite the Light interfaith service at 7:30 p.m. Locations for both events will be announced soon, and we will share that information later this week. On Sunday, August 28th, there'll be an all-church swim party. More information and a link to RSVP can be found in the Friday email and on the church website. As part of our congregation's wonderful partnership with Ebenezer Baptist Church, we are once again inviting you to support the upcoming Back to School Backpack Bash, which will be held on Saturday, August 20th from 10 a.m. to noon. It is now my pleasure to invite Dr. Layman Bates, the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, and our own Elizabeth Breeden, to come forward and tell us about it. Sean, can you show the Back to School Bash slide?
Good morning. My name's Elizabeth Breeden, and I'm here to introduce Pastor Bates. In 2006, when Leslie and David Takahashi Morris were here, we became partners with Ebenezer Baptist Church. And in that time, we worked out both following each other in social justice issues. They have far more interesting ones than we do. We have done the Caribbean nation of St. Kitts Nevis, providing them with medical supplies that we helped him with. We do Pachem, he helps us with. They have also initiated through the African American Pastors Council both Back to School Bash and Thanksgiving. No, and he's done the Thanksgiving turkeys. So we've helped with those. So the Back to School Bash is what you're going to hear about today. And indeed, it's a little complicated about how you donate because it's not part of the Social Action Collection. But you will see on our Friday newsletter the opportunity to offer your volunteer hours. It's on the 20th, so they'll you'd be assigned jobs, and it's a huge giveaway for all the children in town who cannot afford their school supplies. And the background, which is so interesting because the African American Pastors Council invented it, is that they were the ones who said churches should be supporting our youth to know that the community is behind them in their effort for education. It was really a wonderful idea. And the other way you can donate is through a link that you will see next week in the newsletter or on that poster right there, and we hope Sean will put it in the chat for those online.
We need a little work before we take this on the road. First of all, good morning to each and every one of you. Most of you know who I am, and I'm not going to be long, so I just wanted to, again, this is a wonderful day, having the opportunity to meet your pastor for the first time. We did speak this past week, and we will be getting together very soon. Again, most of you know our work here in Charlottesville, so I'm not going to belabor anything, say anything that you don't already know. But what I'd like to do is I'd just like to leave with you a story. This is something actually that happened last weekend. My wife and I, we went to Ohio. Ohio is my birthplace. We went to Ohio for the weekend. And on our return, we had one of those trips from hell. I don't know how else to say it. It was a combination of traffic and flat tires and a whole bunch of little niceties that occurred during the trip. But what happened was so interesting was when we pulled into a McDonald's to get some breakfast, and as you know, nothing is cheap anymore. Used to get a breakfast for like $5, now it's $20. When we pulled up to the pay window, the lady said, you don't know a thing. Your breakfast has been paid for. What had happened is that there was a gentleman in a white pickup truck. To this day, I couldn't tell you what he looked like. But he paid it forward. And it was in the midst of me saying some very colorful words about having to pay $18 for breakfast that I pull up to the pay window to find out that this gentleman had paid it forward. If that's ever happened to you, needless to say, it just changes the whole dynamic of your just thinking and just reminds you of what love and kindness can still do. And so I just wanted to leave that with you. What we're trying to do is just trying to make a difference in our community. I want to again thank you. And again, I'm getting ready to say Thomas Jefferson, but you've changed your name now. So now you're Charlottesville Universalist Unitarian Church. But thank you again for all of your support, for being such a major and beloved partner with Ebenezer. And let's just go out there and let's pay it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Bates, Elizabeth. And I think I'm going to really enjoy getting to know Pastor Bates and exploring even more ways that we can build on this wonderful, wonderful partnership. So friends, let us now bring our hearts and minds together into worship. And I want to begin by sharing a call to worship that I've adapted a little bit from my colleague Marni Harmony. We whose journeys are always beginning gather this day as a community of possibilities, a community that seeks truth and meaning, a community that values questions and answers, a community that offers tenderness and compassion to all who journey through our doors, and that works together for justice and peace for the whole human family. Come, let us worship together. So now I'd like to invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, which is We Give Thanks, and I've got a video of it here for you, which actually has images of many of you. So this is also number 1010 in the teal hymnal, if you're interested in following along in the hymnal, but the words will be on the screen. So if you're willing, please rise.
For this precious day, for all gathered here, and those far away, for this time we share, with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here, and those far away, for this time we share, with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Chalice. And let's say these words together as they light the chalice. Sean, can you put the words of the chalice lighting up? We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is a church of open minds. This is a church of helping hands. This is a church of loving
hearts and
Thank
loving.
you so much, Carol and Clarissa.
So in a moment, I'm going to do a little story time, but I'm going to be the subject of the story. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of my favorite things. But I thought for our chalice song this morning, if you wouldn't mind joining in singing Spirit of Life, which is my favorite Unitarian Universalist hymn. I think those brief words from Carolyn McDade get to the heart of what Unitarian Universalism is and is about. So I'm going to ask our AV folks to play this video. I invite you to rise, or you can remain seated, whatever's comfortable for you, and let's just sing Spirit of Life together. You may be seated. Well, let me just begin by saying, I have to take my glasses off for a minute. They always get fogged up when I sing with a mask on. Let me just begin by saying it is so wonderful to be with you all this morning. My heart is so full of gratitude. That's why I chose We Give Thanks. And I am feeling very held by the roots and the wings of this congregation. So it is just great to be with you. I'm so excited for our future, and I'll have more to say about that in a moment. So I was trying to decide, what would be a good way that I could sort of introduce myself to you without starting with my life story. I was born in a log cabin and chopped down a cherry tree when I was a little guy and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, well, maybe I could just say a word about some of my favorite things. These are things to do, things to just experience. And one thing I'm hoping is that as I get to know all of you, that I'll learn more about some of your favorite things, and I have a kind of a special meaning for favorite things. These are things that when you're doing them or experiencing them, that you just feel there. You're present. You're not, the worries and whatever of life kind of fade into the background, and you're just kind of, I don't know what the cliche is, in the zone, present. Things that you do that just, you kind of get lost, but in a good way. And so as we get to know each other, don't be surprised if I ask you, hey, what are some of your favorite things? But let me take a moment to share with you a few of mine. One thing that I love to do, where I get lost, as long as it's not for sermons, I love to do that too, is of course to read. I am a book fanatic. I am a addictive book buyer. Just ask my wife or daughter, they're both nodding. I own way more books than I've read, and I keep promising that I'll get caught up, but they don't believe me. But I love to read, and when I'm just reading for pleasure, I just get lost in here. and everything else that's going on, especially, what's that next sermon going to be about? What's, anything that's weighing on my mind, it just fades to the background. Now, another thing, and for this I have an image that I wanted to show you. Another thing that I always just takes me to that place are sunsets or sunrises. And of course, first thing I do is always take my camera out to take a picture, which isn't necessarily that centering, but just being in that place, it's like I become part of the sunset. Our theme this month is embodiment. It's almost like my physical being and my spiritual being just become one with my surroundings. And I wish I could do that all the time, but something about images like this and being in there and being, present with them just really, really touches my heart. Now, the final thing, and I hope this goes well. So this is a little bit of bragging on my part. So another thing that I love to do is I am a passionate ping pong player. And when I play ping pong, this is my wife and daughter. I did this for my last congregation and one of my early sermons there, and I was like walking around and I looked very cool, and my wife and daughter said, your hand-eye coordination has suffered a lot since then, so this might not be a good idea. But this sound, this rhythm right here, okay, I'm showing off now. Now, I know if you're listening to that, it may not be that relaxing or centering. You don't hear ping pong as a centering technique in meditation very much. But when I'm just hitting back and forth with someone or someone's, I don't know, I just get lost again in a good way. I'm just there. And like I said, all the stuff that normally weighs on me, it doesn't, I'm just having fun. I'm just being present in the moment. So I hope, I don't really have a big lesson for you except to say that I'm assuming that all of you have those favorite things that help you to be and to feel like you're in that kind of a place where you're, again, lost and at peace, but in a really good way. And I just hope that you will all continue to find time in this busy, crazy world of ours to do those favorite things, to do them together. It's so important to find the time to just be and to have fun. And I want being and having fun to be a big part of what our ministry is here at the UU Congregation of Charlottesville. So, because yes, fun is an important part of congregational life. So that's thank you, Christine. So that's my message for you today. And so let me take a sip of water here, and then I want to now move us into our time of centering and sharing. So I invite you, if you are so moved, to maybe take a deep cleansing breath. Maybe relax your shoulders, put your feet flat on the floor, close your eyes if you want to, whatever's comfortable. In Unitarian Universalism, we're going to just, whatever's comfortable for you, that's what's important. In the stillness of this moment, let us take time to listen to the stirrings of our hearts and of those we love and journey together with in this community. Let us also make sure we listen to the cries for justice of those who are being harmed in our world, harmed by racism, sexism, transphobia, and the violence of war in Ukraine and in so many other places in the world. Let us also take a moment to remember that this coming week does indeed mark the 5th anniversary of the so-called Unite the Right rally. We pray for the family of Heather Heyer, for those who were injured both physically and emotionally, for all who were traumatized and are still suffering from the wounds caused by so much hate and violence. But as we hold that pain, let us also be grateful for all who are courageously working to build a very different world, a world of love rather than hate, peace rather than violence, hope rather than despair. I know many in this sanctuary and those who are watching online are doing this work every day, and we are so inspired by your dedication, your commitment, and your love. As we listen and reflect on all that we carry in our hearts, I'd now like to invite us into a moment of shared silence. Amen, and blessed be.
There we go. All right. This community offers its love and support to what is closest to our hearts. Another way we show our care for one another is in sharing our financial gifts with our community and our congregation. Today's service includes our monthly social action collection, which is being taken for Project Rise. Many of you attended the service last Sunday, in which Project Rise's CEO, Sharon Fitz, shared the organization's extraordinary mission of empowerment and social justice. We ask that you give generously to support Project Rise. Sean, could you show us the slide for giving? Each week, we invite everyone to the spiritual practice of generosity by giving to the ministry of our congregation. Through your pledges and with the weekly Sunday morning offering, together, we build the future of our congregation and our larger community. This is our shared ministry. From you we receive, and to you we give. During the music which follows, you may choose to make your Sunday morning offering by using the text address or going to our website. Here in the sanctuary, you may bring cash or checks forward. During this musical prayer of thanksgiving, you are invited to share not only financial gifts, but you are also invited to share the joys and sorrows in your hearts. Those on Zoom may put them in the chat box, and those of you at Rugby Road may come forward to place a stone in the water. The stone symbolizes what is in your heart, and the water represents the soothing embrace our caring community offers for your joys and sorrows. You may also leave us a note on the joy and sorrow paper provided here. I will light a candle now for all the joys and sorrows in our hearts this morning. Let us hold one another in a compassionate embrace, and let us dedicate all of the many gifts we share with one another by saying, "We accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good." You may come forward now with your gifts and your prayers.
Thank you, James. Wow, that was fantastic. So, I want to, before sharing a few thoughts with you this morning, I'd like to share a reading with you from someone who I think some of you at least remember pretty well, Gordon McKeeman. How many people here knew Gordon? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Gordon was, I got to know Gordon. I've actually never met Gordon in person, but we spoke on the phone a few times because Gordon was the emeritus minister of the congregation I served in Akron, Ohio, and very much a legend there. There's a room in the church that's named after him. And he left such an incredible and extraordinary legacy at that congregation. So the reading I want to share with you is I think a pretty famous one from Gordon, at least among Unitarian Universalist ministers, where he sort of lays out in typically poetic and beautiful Gordon McKeeman ways what ministry is. So let me share that with you now. Ministry is all that we do together. Ministry is that quality of being in community that affirms human dignity, beckons forth hidden possibilities, invites us into deeper, more constant, reverent relationships, and carries forward our heritage of hope and liberation. Ministry is what we do together as we celebrate triumphs of our human spirit, miracles of birth and life, wonders of devotion and sacrifice. Ministry is what we do together with one another in terror and torment, in grief, in misery and pain, enabling us in the presence of death to say yes to life. We who minister speak and live the best we know with full knowledge that it is never quite enough, and yet are reassured by lostness found, fragments reunited, wounds healed, and joys shared. Ministry is what we all do together. Gordon McKeeman. Beautiful, beautiful words. Well, good morning again. Let me begin by saying how wonderful it is to be in this pulpit sharing worship with you this morning. I've been kind of looking forward to this day for quite a while, and I can't begin to describe how honored and privileged I am to serve the UU congregation of Charlottesville and to make this journey with all of you. I also want to say how much I appreciate all the kind words of welcome I have received during my first week. It's actually technically less than a week. From emails and Zoom conversations to folks who have stopped by, taking a moment to say hello here at the church, I have been greeted with so much kindness and expressions of goodwill. In fact, Pam and the board has gifted me with a welcoming team who are I'm going to get together with them this week. That's Elizabeth Breeden, Brett Gastinger, and Ann Salamini. The four of us are getting together, and so they can share their wisdom and experience about the church. And I think we talked about them maybe taking me on a tour. By the way, I just want the three of you to know that I am hoping and expecting that while on this tour that you're going to show me where the treasure is buried and also the secret panels and doors leading to all the tunnels. So I also have to give a shout out, as I've gotten to know them this week, to your incredible staff that serves this congregation. Although I'm only just getting to know them, I have already witnessed how talented and passionate they are. You see, from what I've heard, their work for the UU congregation, for them, the way they talk about it isn't a job. It feels more like a calling to serve the values and principles at the heart of this church community. It is so wonderful as a minister to have a professional staff that is excited to serve. And I have already witnessed that excitement from Caroline Hines, your religious education assistant, from Scott DeVoe, who I've had coffee with. He's not here today. Your wonderful music director, and from Sean up there in the balcony, who, how do I describe Sean? He knows how to do everything. Is that a fair statement? Sean's probably, he's too humble, but that's about right. Sean can do it all. There are a couple staff members I haven't worked with yet, Leah Ray and John Mayhood, but I'm looking forward to meeting them. And then, of course, finally, I have to say something about your Reverend Leah. Reverend Leah and I we're already buddies. We have developed a close collegial partnership, and I feel so blessed and fortunate to be ministering alongside such a talented, kind, passionate, and gifted minister. We are all so lucky to have Reverend Leah. By the way, Reverend Leah's on study leave right now. I don't know if she's watching. I warned her before she left that I was going to say a lot of nice things about her. So now, speaking of wonderful ministers like Reverend Leah, I have had the privilege of learning from so many during my own journey to ministry. One of those ministers is sitting in the pews this morning, my good buddy, Reverend Wayne Arneson. Wayne and his, is it okay if I say better half? Reverend Kathleen Rollens were co-ministers at a congregation in Cleveland when I was in Akron, Ohio. So we became friends and colleagues, and they've both been wonderful mentors for me. And I've just been so blessed to by them and by so many ministers who have touched and influenced my life. And undoubtedly, you'll hear more about some of them in future sermons. But today, I want to tell you about one particular minister who touched my life and whose memory I always carry with me. Now, this particular minister didn't attend seminary. He may or may not have been religious. I really don't know. Never came up. And certainly didn't wear a robe or preach from a pulpit. But he most assuredly ministered to me, and his wisdom and example helped me become the minister I am today. Now, I met this gentleman, and I'm going to just call him Mr. Carter, not Jimmy Carter, different. Almost 20 years ago, when I was a seminary student in the Boston area. Mr. Carter was an elderly man. He wasn't very tall, not like me. And he had immigrated to this country some years ago from Jamaica. Now, whenever I saw Mr. Carter, he usually dressed pretty simply, and he always wore a baseball cap. In fact, every time I saw him, he reminded me a little bit of the actor George Burns in the movie Oh God. Many of you, that goes back a ways, but that memory would flash that image would flash in my mind. Now, when I first met Mr. Carter, I was beginning a ministerial internship at the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which was located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. For those of you who aren't familiar with UUSC, it is a human rights organization that was founded by our denomination. It was actually originally two organizations in the late 1930s to help refugees fleeing Nazi persecution. Today, UUSC partners with human rights organizations across the world and offers opportunities for UUs to work for human dignity and social justice. Now, throughout my internship at UUSC, which lasted kind of an academic year, about 9 months, I had to walk several blocks to the office from a garage where I parked my car. Now, as I made that walk on my very first day of my internship, I remember I was nervous and uncertain. I didn't really know anyone at UUSC and had only spoken to my supervisor once, and that was over the phone. I was also the first ministerial intern they had had in quite a few years, and to be honest with you, when I started, I don't think they really knew what to do with me. We figured it out eventually. Now, my walk to the office took me down a street that had a mixture of multifamily homes, a few businesses, and a large apartment building. As I walked down that street on that first day around 8:30, I'd say, in the morning, most people were hurriedly passing by it's part of the morning commute as they headed for the nearest subway station or bus stop. Many were listening to headphones and had their heads down as they were looking at iPods or cell phones or whatever. But there was one person who was standing on a sidewalk, smoking a cigarette. I don't advise that part. That was Mr. Carter. Now, as I approached where he was standing, I noticed that Mr. Carter appeared to be saying something as people passed him by, but very few of those folks appeared to notice or hear him. There were a few who did at least sort of look up. And then I also, as I got a little closer, I saw a few people who seemed to look up at him as they approached and then crossed to the other side of the street. Now, I have to confess, as I approached Mr. Carter, my first thought was, well, maybe he's asking for money, or perhaps maybe he's saying something kind of rude or unpleasant. I'm sorry to say that the thought crossed my mind to cross to the other side of the street. But I'm so glad I didn't, because when I got up to Mr. Carter, he simply looked at me, made eye contact, smiled, and said, "Good morning, sir." That was it. Now, I don't know how many of you have spent time in a New England city, like Boston or Cambridge, but in my years living there, receiving a warm greeting from a total stranger is pretty out of the ordinary. So when I walked past Mr. Carter on that first morning, I was caught off guard, not only by his greeting, but also by his tone of voice, which was warm and kind and lacked any expectation that his greeting would even be returned. He simply seemed to just enjoy the experience, the moment of offering a heartfelt good morning and a smile. Now, I don't remember what I said. I probably went, "Good morning," and kept going. I was probably a lot like those people who seem sort of, what's the word? Like automatons, I guess, I don't know. And I went on my way. But as I continued my walk, I noticed that, something inside me started to relax a little bit. It's almost as if that simple good morning helped me to breathe, to let go of a little bit of my worry and anxiety, and to simply be open to what the day had to offer. Now, throughout the duration of my internship, throughout those 9 months, with a couple of exceptions, I exchanged good mornings with Mr. Carter every day. Well, I think I went in 3 times a week, but every time I went in. Sometimes I would stop and we would chat about the weather, or sometimes a ball game, usually the Red Sox, that had been on TV the night before. I learned, as we talked more and got to know each other, that he was retired, that he actually lived in that tall apartment building, which I think was an apartment building for seniors on kind of fixed incomes, and that he loved to come outside in the morning to smoke, but also to just say good morning to people as they headed for work or school. Well, I can't begin to tell you how much this man's friendship touched my life and helped me learn and grow as a minister. See, Mr. Carter helped me to see that what I had thought were the big stuff of ministry, being a minister is about preaching great sermons and giving public speeches and teaching classes, and it is all about those things. Whereas things like, hey, how are you? Good morning, welcome, those were the smaller stuff. Mr. Carter helped me see I had it all backwards. Those are the important things that I would do as a minister, because I had experienced how powerful it is to be greeted warmly, to feel welcomed, and to feel that my presence mattered even to somebody who didn't really know me. It is because of Mr. Carter that for as long as I have been a Unitarian Universalist minister, on Sunday mornings, I stand outside or inside by the front door if it's really cold and greet people as they come to church. I didn't learn that in seminary. I didn't learn it from another minister. I learned it from Mr. Carter. Welcoming has become a huge part of my ministry, and I am so excited to learn about all the ways that you welcome new people and to talk with your greeters and the membership committee. Christine and I have already exchanged emails, and I want to just make sure that everyone who comes through our doors, no matter who they are, where they have come from, what they believe, or who they love, I want us to work together to make sure that everyone feels welcomed and appreciated, just as Mr. Carter made me feel that first day and every day that I saw him. Now, that's not the only lesson I got from this wonderful man. You see, I learned from Mr. Carter that a minister isn't just the person that wears a stole or preaches a sermon. A minister is someone who serves, who cares for and about others, and who reaches out to share that care and concern with the world. That's what made Mr. Carter such a great minister. He didn't simply keep his friendliness or his kindness to himself. He didn't stay in his apartment or just sit there on the street, staring at his phone. He let his passion for meeting and greeting others shine. And that beautiful light has shined and continues to shine on me to this day. And I think Mr. Carter had something that is essential for ministry, a sense of calling. Now, the idea of calling or being called can be sort of theologically complicated and maybe a little hard to articulate or understand. Now, for some, in what you might call sort of traditional religious circles, being called is sort of like being summoned by a higher power, perhaps to save souls or win converts. That's being called. That's great if that's your cup of tea. But for others, and I think I fall a little bit more into this category, being called is about listening to what touches our heart and stirs our soul. And then once we've listened, being called is about then acting, about putting one's heart and soul into the service of others and the world. That's why one of my favorite definitions of ministry comes from the spiritual writer Frederic Buechner, who is one of my favorites, and I highly recommend him. Listen to what he says. He says, ministry is, and I'm quoting here, that place where our deep gladness meets the world's deep need. Ministry is that place where our deep gladness meets the world's deep need. So as we begin our shared journey together, here are some of my questions for all of you. What is the UU congregation of Charlottesville's deep gladness? What touches your hearts and stirs your souls? What is this congregation, what is it that you're doing or experiencing together when you feel that you are at your best? And where and how do you use your deep gladness to meet the world's deep need? How do you turn your joy, your sense of purpose, your calling into acts of love and justice, compassion and kindness that meet the needs of a world that is, quite frankly, hurting and very broken. These are the kinds of questions I hope we explore as we begin this shared journey of ministry and love. I'll tell you, just in 6 days, I've already met quite a few Mr. Carters right here in this congregation. People who are passionate about UUCville and about Unitarian Universalism, and who are working to turn that passion into wonderful deeds of ministry. But as Gordon McKeeman reminded us, ministry isn't just what we do on our own, rather ministry is what we do together. Each and every one of you is a minister, and what I hope we can do together is to find ways and find how we can weave your individual ministries, your callings, your passions into a shared ministry of love and justice that, and here I'm quoting Gordon, will affirm human dignity, beckon forth hidden possibilities, invite us into deeper, more constant, reverent relationships, and carry forward Unitarian Universalism's and the UU Congregation of Charlottesville's heritage of hope and liberation. Friends, I am so thrilled to be sharing the ministry of this congregation with all of you, and I cannot wait to see where this journey will take us. We have so much love to give, so much justice to create, and so much hope to share with the world. Let's make a beginning. Thank you so much for listening, and blessed be. Thank you. So, one of my favorite UU hymns, which is not in either of the hymnals, about calling and ministry, is one that our great UU hymn writer and composer Jason Shelton wrote about 10 years ago or so, called Life Calls Us On. I have this on video. Now, Reverend Leah says that you all have sung this before, but it's not like one of your regular repertoire. So the words will be on the screen, and we're going to be watching a video in which I think the choir at the UU congregation in Baltimore, Maryland, is singing this song. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit. This is a passionate hymn, so if you want to get in the spirit, don't be shy, and
here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known. With and duty. Does with a trusted love. Blessed are they whose inward beauty the path of truth and right. Honor is their earthly prize. By their works we realize great calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared a radiant hour. We have shared when the truth has made us free. And the Spirit's gracious power. The good that yet shall be. Right the path before us lies. Joyful pilgrims, now we rise. Life calls us on. 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 Life calls
Didn't mind. By the way, I don't know if you all heard, but James was joining in on the piano, which just made it that much richer and more beautiful. So thank you so much. I want to leave you today with some words from Reverend Ellen Johnson Fay. Do justly this day and every day. Be of good will. Journey humbly before the mysteries of life and before that gulf which separates us from the ideals we profess. Live in peace and praise. Our day is just beginning. May it be so. Now, I want to let you all know that when I finish the benediction in every service I lead, I always conclude with a little blessing that was inspired by one of my mentors, Reverend Bill Clark, although I tweaked it a little bit. So don't be surprised. Every Sunday, I'll offer you a few words of blessing before we go into the postlude. And these are the words. Friends, be well. Take very good care of yourselves, of each other, and of the world. And as we begin this journey together, may life, faith, hope, and love always, always call us on. Blessed be. Go in peace. As I invite you to sit and listen to the postlude, I know I am, and then I look for, because James is amazing, and then I'll look forward to greeting you outside and then seeing you at the reception. So you may be seated.